Hello, and welcome to my tutorial on compositing green screen footage into Unreal Engine. Please subscribe, as this is my first tutorial and I'm hoping to give you a part 2 if I gain enough interest. You need a little bit of prep work with your green screen footage. Ideally, you need to have shot it with the green screen lit as evenly as possible. What I do after I've shot the footage is take it into After Effects, clean up the green screen, and then output it as a PNG sequence. Unreal Engine seems to work really well with PNG sequences, so ideally you convert your footage into PNG. Okay. Launch the version you have. I've already pre-launch mine to save time. You can create a new project using the category film, television and live events. Any of these will actually work though. And then you can create a blank project. You do need to leave the starter content in there, so leave that, don't change that. And then the ray tracing I'm leaving disabled because of the speed of my machine. If you have a very fast machine, you can enable it. I'm just going to name this one tutorial and then create. While it's doing that, I'm just trying to get across that I am a relative newbie, although I pick up things quickly. I'm a filmmaker and multi-award winning film director, but I also love visual effects. Anyway, so this is opened up. Let's go. Dismiss the plugins and the update project. Yes, you can do it now. It doesn't matter either way. So we can start really by removing this. You don't need to, but you can. What we're going to do is import the wonderful QA interrogation room. So we can do this a few ways, but I prefer to launch it from within Epic Games. So what you can do is, if you've not already downloaded this free project from Epic Games, is you can go to the marketplace and download QA interrogation room. So what we're going to do is add to the project, and the project we're adding it to is the tutorial. And add to project. You'll see it's initializing, it's adding it, and it's there quite quickly. And here it is, a QA interrogation room folder. So when it shows up, what you want to do is just open the folder and go into the maps, and you want to use interrogation room demo 1. Open that, save all selected. When it opens up, it always seems to open up in a corridor. So if you use your key commands to move the camera around. I'm left clicking at the present, and if you go through a wall you can move forward, and this is the room we want. So I'm going to roughly get the camera where I can see what's happening. So the camera we're using, this isn't one that's being created, it comes within the viewer. This is our setup, and I want to place 2 green screen characters sitting in each chair having a conversation that will be keyed out for the finished movie. Firstly, what we need to do is, just so it makes things easier, is go in project settings, and when that opens you want to go into the maps and modes and change the edit startup map and even the game default map to QA interrogation room demo 1. So from now on, whenever you open up the project again, it will automatically show this level. Okay, so firstly, this table has a number of items on it that I really don't want. So I'm going to remove them. Just click on them and delete. Click and delete. Click and delete, and I'm just rolling in closer so I can get to the ashtray, cigarettes, matches, and these 2 little cigarettes. For now I want to leave this file because I may use it later. I don't need this second chair with the coat on it, so I'm going to erase the coat and the chair. Now you'll see that Where the items were, they've left strange marks. These are because the lighting was baked in. So when you move around, it looks great until you remove an item and the table looks incredibly marked. So if you ever get this problem, what you need to do is just go up into Build and click on Build Lighting Only. And that is going to export the lighting data and then bring it in, building the lights from scratch. It could take a while depending on your machine. And there it's rebuilt. No nasty marks that shouldn't be there. So first things first, let's tidy a few things up. All these items are within the room and it's a lot to go through, and we could in theory put these all in nice little folders. So what we do is let's firstly get the lamps in their own folder, in other words the lights. Click Shift to select them all, and then if we go to the plus, a new folder, they will all automatically be in the folder, and I'm just going to call this Lights. You can call it whatever you want. You don't have to do any of this. This is a personal choice. In my case, it's just to make it a lot cleaner and easier to navigate. I'm going to stop the recording until I've got everything in folders. Okay, welcome back. Let's create a plane to put the green screen onto. You would go into Basic, Plane, drag that in and find the spot where you can physically see it. Click on it if it's not already there, and then just position it by using a combination of the E button and then drag to make it revolve, and for now we want it 90%, and then the W button to move it backwards and forwards. See, and if we move it too far back, we're going through the chair, so we don't want to see the chair, and we'll get it roughly there. So now we've created the plane. The plane should show up in our world outliner. So there's a plane, but I want to actually create a folder with planes in it because I'm going to be creating a lot more planes with green screen on them. You might not be. So I'm going to name this Actor Planes, and our plane is in it, but I'm going to name this. I'm still calling it plane just in case it gets lost, but this is going to be Prison Side 1. You can name them whatever you want. So we've created this plane, and now we've got to find a way of putting the footage on it. Let's bring in the PNG files. Click on the content to go back up, and then right click, create a new folder, and call this Movies. Again, you can call it what you want when you're using PNGs. Click on it, and now just drag this over. Now you would right click and you need to go to Media, Image Media Source. Click on it. Let's just name it. I'm keeping the name Source, but it's Prison Side 1. Okay, so we've got the media source. Double click and it will open up this window. Click on the little three dots to find the path that it is on. Here's the PNG sequence. Click on the first one and open. Now, before you close this, you want to go on Show Advanced. Change the frame rate override to 24 frames per second. If you're using 24 frames per second, change it to whatever frames per second you're working with. Save, close. So we've got our source here. Now we have to create a media texture. Right click, media, and this is now media texture. Click on that, and again name that whatever you want to name. So we've got the source, we've got the texture, and now you would right click on the texture, and at the top, media texture, actions, create material. This would have the same name as this, just ending in material. Just click on it and it will open up the editor. So this is where you do most of your work. So we can reposition it to whatever size we want, and we can drag these boxes wherever we want. You can zoom in and out by using your middle scroll wheel if you have one, but you can just reposition these. You can right click to move them how you want as a whole. Okay, I've just brought these further apart. So with the texture sample, we want to create the chroma key action. Click on the RGB and drag, and then let go and type in chroma key. Chroma. Brings up a few choices. The one you want is the MF chroma key. And what that does is it allows us to take from the opacity into the opacity mask, which is here. It's currently blacked out, but it will accept it. So let's get that working by clicking, so this is highlighted, come down to the blend mode of the material, change from opacity to masked, and now you see it's not masked out. So we need to go to the RGB again, drag down, let go, and multiply. This is where we want the multiply. Here we go. And this will basically put two items together, blend them together into one, but we want the output going to emissive color. Position that where you want. And now on a space, hold down one and left click. And this has created your material expression constant. Just drag it into B. Fundamentally, you're there now. That's all you need to do. You can click apply. What's happening here is the material expression constant. If you need to, you can adjust these values here to make your finished image, the keyed image, a little bit lighter or darker. In part 2, you would see how to adjust the image a little bit more with regards to things like color balance and so forth. However, for now, leave this value as it is. Okay, we apply that, save it, and close. So now we've created the material, we drag it onto it, and voila, it vanishes. That's because we need to do one more thing before we see the green screen footage. Firstly, let's, in the sequence area, we need to create a sequence. Let's just drag this over so we've got a bit more space. Then you go up to the cinematics, click, and you want to add a level sequence. You can name this anything, but I'm going to be giving it a very precise name because I'm going to have many sequences eventually. So this has created the sequence here. The first thing we need to remember to do is change the frame rate to whatever frame rate you're working in, which should be the same frame rate as your PNG footage, 24 frames per second in my case. So we've got that. Now we want to go to add track, and we go all the way down to media track. That's what we want to add. It appears here. And in the timeline, click on the plus media, and you want to add the image source, which is Prison Side 1, and it appears here. You can drag this out for whatever the length of your timeline is. I know my timeline needs to be a lot longer, so for sake of argument, I'm going to make it 0700, and therefore I can drag the bar to show it all. I'll drag out the little red ending bar, and now drag the footage out as far as it will go, and see what we get here. This little white line is an indicator of saying where your footage actually ends. After that it loops back round, so we only really want it to go as far as that. So I'm just going to bring this back in for now so we know it's basically there. Okay. And the final thing we do is right click on the source, which should open up a window if my mouse is working correctly. To the properties, go up there, go down to media texture, which currently says none, and change that to your media texture you've created. And there we go. And when I close this, he should appear on the plate. Just click out of there, and there we go. So the green screen's in, It's on the plate. Most of the time it comes in the wrong way around, so just very quickly I will click on it, then press E to revolve it 90 degrees. Then press W again so I can position him roughly where I want him. So a few things. Firstly, this plate is the wrong shape for our format, and if it's highlighted, if you've clicked on it, the plate is highlighted there, and in the bottom, let's just drag that up, and in the details panel, this is all the information that relates to the plate if it's selected. And we just go to scale, and it looks like it's on the red X angle that we need to change from 1 to 1.78. And there we go. So now it's the correct shape. Way too big, but the correct shape. So to get the scale better, we would lock all the items, the X, Y, Z, and reduce everything in scale to what we assume is a closer angle. We can refine this later, but for now let's just put him, which is actually me, there. So now we've got him there, and if we drag forward, as long as it can cache the render, you can see me moving. Okay, now we want to key out the green screen. So you have the green screen selected, you see the material here, and we need to create an instance which will make our life a lot easier, a material instance. Right click on that, and at the top of material actions, create material instance. It will have the same name as that with instance on the end. What we set up earlier in the material editor with the chroma key will now work within the instance. So all we need to do is click on the instance, double click it, get this to a size where we can still see this panel below, and we can click and drag to revolve this to see me. And now what we're going to do is key it out. And we've created this parameter within the original material, which was the chroma key, which now shows up here in the instance. So if we click on here and click on the green, there's an eyedropper. Now we use this eyedropper to key out the green we want to key out. We wouldn't do it here. It's not going to work. You have to use the eyedropper and key it out on the little texture here. And there we go. So I'm going to close that. But this is a very limited key, and no matter what you do, it's limited. Anyway, so we've got the rough key now, and you can click on Luma Mask and indeed Alpha Min, any of these, but Luma Mask is the most effective one initially, and slowly drag it, get your key to grow or shrink, and here we go, it's slowly shrinking much more, and there we go. Not ideal, but it's reasonably effective. Ideally, it would be a wonderful way to soften the edges, especially when people have hair. You see here, we're not getting this. You can work with the Alpha Min, but it's very subtle shifts. So I'm going to save this and come out of it. Now this is still green screen because we have currently the material on it, but what we want to do is swap that for the instance. So all we need to do now is just drag the instance on there and it swaps it for the material instance, and there we go. I'm just going to speed the camera up while I move around the plate and the camera into the position I want. Okay, now we are going to create the camera we are going to use. There are a number of ways you can do it. You can go here into cinematics and bring in the cinematic actor, or you can press the plus sign here, and that would bring in a camera at the exact position your viewer is currently looking at, although in this case it's a different focal length. So I'm going to get this view to the rough position I want, and then click here. So it's going to create a camera from this angle, although it probably will look very different because it's a different focal length. But now we are actually viewing directly through the camera we've created, because if you see here it says Pilot Active Cine Camera Actor, which is the one we've created. If we don't want to look immediately through it, we can click this little eject button and it will go back to the standard perspective viewer. But we've created this camera, and just to save ourselves some time, I'm going to click on the camera and I'm going to change that to Cam Pris Side 1, because we're going to be creating a few more cameras in future episodes. And also because it's highlighted, I'm going to put the cameras into their own folder by clicking here and calling it cameras. So now we know all the cameras will appear in there. So this camera is currently blurred, it's in the wrong position, we're seeing through it, so any movements we make here will physically move the camera. If it's highlighted, we can transform it or move it from here, or by internally moving the positions in here. But for now, I'm just going to get it a little bit higher. And let's sort out the focus first. A few things. This is the camera, these are the details for the camera, all these relate to the camera. So we first should adjust the film back if it's set wrong. Now I'm using a 16:9 DSLR camera. Interestingly, it changes the focal length because it's not full frame 35mm. You would set that to whatever camera you would have shot on originally. My lens was approximately, let's say, 55mm focal length. It helps if you match the focal length here with the focal length of the lens you originally shot the footage on. You're less likely to get strange distortions. I'm keeping the current aperture to 2.8 at least for now, which will give me a nice blurred background when I focus on him. So you can go into focus settings, open that, and here it has focus method. We can manually focus by adjusting this, or we can track. And if we open the tracking focus setting and use the mouse dropper, whatever we click on, it will automatically focus on, even if the camera moves. There we go, I've clicked on me, and now I'm sharp, and I will remain sharp even if I move the camera. Just for now, I'm going to save all. Please remember to save regularly. And I'll just pause this whilst it's saving. Okay, everything's saved. The current angle I'm at, I want to get into a slightly better position, so I'm viewing through the camera. Remember, any movements I make with my mouse within here will move the camera, so I'm going to just subtly move that. If the camera moves too fast for you, you can always adjust the camera's viewing speed or movement speed here. I tend to put it down to roughly 2. And now any movements I make with the camera or even the perspective camera will move a lot more precisely. I'm going to get it subtly. I want him there. I'm going to adjust the angle. Again, it's jumping a bit too fast. In fact, I'm going to change the snapping angles here. I'm going to actually switch that off. So that switches off the snapping. And now when I move, it should be more fluid, just to position me how I want. Or you can, which some people find easier, and I do indeed, is click the eject button. So now we're seeing just the perspective view, and if we spin this round, we'll be able to see the actual camera we're using. That's the camera that I've created. So I'm just going to move into a slightly better position to see there. So this is the camera we're viewing through, which you can see here. So moving the camera, it's still not as smooth as possible because snapping is still on here for the grid. Just switch that off. That's smoother and a better position. Now just use E to revolve the camera a little. Here we go, press W and take the camera a little in, unfortunately. And there. Okay, so you get it to, in other words, the position you like. And if I want to see it in full view, I can go to perspective, placed cameras, which currently is only one, and we now will see through it. What's wrong with this picture is the plate, me, is slightly off at the wrong angle. Click on the plate. Press E to revolve it subtly so it's facing more of the camera. Remember, we're working on it's not a 3-dimensional object, it's a 2-dimensional object. But that's starting to look fairly realistic. Other than the fact I'm too bright, various things like that. And I'm sharp, the background's blurred, so everything's looking good. I'm just going to save that current angle. Okay, now it's saved. Let's make a few little changes. So subtly we can change this. It's limiting what we can do at this stage, but we can go into the material, double click to open up the editor again, position this in a way that we can still see me on the screen. That's enough. You can revolve this to see me, but really it's best seeing it there. Now, currently the existing lights within the scene are affecting this, which is making it too bright. Sometimes that this material is being affected by the lights works very well. So we can sort of play around with this. We've got it at default lit, but what we want to do is say unlit, and it should probably go very dark. Yes. If we click apply, we will see it appear here, and there we go. Because there's nothing lighting it now. So if we click on here, we can now change the value of this, for sake of argument, to 1. Click apply, and let's see what it renders out in brightness. And there we go. It's closer to what we want. I think it could go a little darker, so I'm going to click on there and go to 0.7, which might be too dark, and apply. Looking a lot better. So for now, I'm going to leave it as that. Save it, close it, and we've got, generally speaking, something that without the fringe, if I click somewhere else, it doesn't look too bad at all. So let's create a camera move. I'm just going to close that and click on the camera. And what we want to do is say, right, this camera we want in this sequence. It's currently appeared in there because we created it from here. So we now want to move this camera a little. Make sure your timeline pointer is at 0. Click on the camera, open it, and what you want to do is see transform. Now in theory you don't have to open this, but if you click here in the middle, that will add a keyframe wherever your camera currently is. So let's say I want to start where it is now. Click there, little keyframe dot is shown at the start. Drag your timeline arrow or pointer forward to where you want it to move to, and then you move your camera physically to the position you want it to end up in. And I'm in pilot mode, so if I move anywhere around here, it will, if I click and move, it will move the camera. So you can do it this way, or you can move your camera this way. So let me just go in. That's going up and down. Go in. Yeah, and I want to go up a little. By holding down my left and right keys simultaneously allows me to drag up or down. So let's say that's what I want. So I've moved the camera, but we have to create the key. So just press again here on the little middle button, and we've created it. So we've created our first movement. Get this back to 0. You can press here and it'll go back to 0. And now, all being well, when we press play, we'll get the camera movement. Slowly zooming in. When we get to the point here, it stopped rendering. I'm just going to stop it currently, press the space bar. It was going too fast, so it froze. It's still working, but here, that's where the camera stops moving. We continue, and then when it gets to this end, where if you remember was, if we expand this a little bit, that white is where the sequence goes back to 0. So we want to know that it's jumped, see, because it's going back to the start. So I'm going to make sure that this ends here. So there we go. A few other little things is we scroll up to the top, camera cuts, and currently it's only going to here because that's where the cut is, and that's fine. If we had different cameras, we could position this timeline to where we want the next camera to cut into it, and if we've got another camera, we can click add here, and if the camera's already created, it will instantly cut to the other camera. But all we're working with currently is this. So let's just get this timeline so we can see it all. Go back to 0 and it's working. So I'm just going to save current. So we can actually create the finished clip. It doesn't matter whether you're in pilot mode or not, because what it's doing is recording everything that's in this sequence at 24 frames per second. So you would click here on render this movie and it opens up your render movie settings. Now it's up to you. You can render out the image output that you want. I'm going to set up to render out the best footage I can get. Unfortunately, although I have the ProRes plugin in the project, it doesn't show up because of either a bug in the software as far as Macs are concerned, or it could be connected with the Mac computer I'm using, whatever. So the best I can get is AVI. Because it's a PNG sequence, there is no audio. Frame rate 24 frames a second, and resolution I'm going to get it to the highest possible. I could use customize and change it up so it's bigger, but for now this is all we need. I don't want the footage to be compressed, so no compression, and then set your directory path. I'm going to close that, and now when I'm not clicking here yet, when I do, it will open up a little preview window in the top left corner showing the render, and down here in the right hand side it will tell me it's rendering, although it might appear to freeze. Yes, we have to save selected first, and then it will automatically open the preview in the top left. It always seems to show a few frames of unusable stuff, so when it shows up there, bottom right, it's showing it's capturing. When the bottom right capturing video window closes, it has finished its render. And here is the finished footage. And the camera slowly tracks in. Please subscribe, in which case I will be doing a part 2 with this same scenario, building up a scene between two characters which were shot green screen. I would also be showing more advanced features to do with simple color correction of the footage, and also post-process and adding features with camera bloom and adjusting lights. Thank you very much.